I think Georgia's going to beat Alabama pretty convincingly. I don't know why. As I drove home on this beautiful Thursday, by the way, welcome back to Rush the Field. I know I haven't posted in a couple days now. I was on vacation to Philadelphia / New York City. By the way, just want to point this out. Philadelphia, yeah, if you've never been there and you've only heard the stories of Eagles fans, they're all true. That is the most angry city I've ever seen. Also, great food, okay vibes. I think New York City's vibes just took it to another level. I was only there for 24 hours, but no, yeah, Phillies fans are about as insane as you could imagine. Didn't help that I was also in an Arsenal bar in the middle of a tight Arsenal game while the Eagles were playing, so that might have baked into the pie that I'm giving the result of right now. But let's talk about this Georgia-Alabama game, because this is the game of the year so far. I understand Texas and Georgia, that's most likely going to be game of the year. It could be a 1-2 matchup, something that we don't get common in college football. But this right now, up to this point, is game of the year. You have Georgia going into Bryant-Denny Stadium. You have Georgia recovering from their loss to Alabama in the SEC title game just a year ago. This is the first matchup with no Nick Saban. There's just so many storylines. I don't need to sell you to watch this game. But what I wanted to do in the first video back for this week, as we get back into the rhythm of things, is kind of dissect why I think Georgia is more equipped and more prepared to potentially control this game for the first 4 quarters. I don't know why I said first. All 4 quarters. And I'm going to dive into the problem I have with Alabama up to this point. I'm fully open to being wrong on this, but this is just the prediction that I'm expecting to come to life. And if it goes wrong, it goes wrong. But before I pull up the whiteboard, let's talk about these two teams and their season up to this point. Alabama, they've had some flaws on the offensive line with Caden Proctor out of the lineup. When he's plugged back in, things run a lot better. They played Wisconsin away. Wisconsin lost their quarterback in the first quarter, and they didn't really have a chance to begin with, and then they really did not have a chance. And then Alabama handles them pretty convincingly. Then they struggled against USF. By the way, this is not in timeline order. They struggled with USF. They struggled last year with USF. It was a weird game. Once Proctor came back in, don't let the score fool you. That was a close game for about the 5th minute left in the entire ball game. Then they had a couple of cupcakes. So there's not a lot of takeaways for Alabama. They are an explosive team. Ryan Williams, the 17-year-old, you're going to hear that about 9 times on the broadcast. That's what's going to be their MO, is explosive plays and running the football. For Georgia, a convincing win against Clemson to start the year, arguably one of the best wins across the board, across the entire country, just because Clemson has really bounced back after that loss. And as they get better, that win against Clemson gets better for Georgia. Georgia also struggled against Kentucky. At Kentucky, this is a game that's kind of seen not exactly to the same caliber as a USF game, because obviously Kentucky as an SEC program is leaps and bounds more talented than a USF program. Although I think USF is one of the best group of 5 teams, Kentucky's obviously better. But this is kind of seen as the same realm as just another team that continuously kind of makes things closer than expected. If you did not know, Georgia and Kentucky always weirdly is a close game, and that was a big opportunity for Kentucky. But I think Georgia has had some moments where they kind of lull themselves to sleep against opponents that they shouldn't be in these games with. I think of Auburn last year. I think of Kentucky once again. But I still think Georgia is the team that we think they are. They are the number 2 team in the nation. And so what I want to explain is, yes, this is a heavyweight fight, but I fear the biggest problem I have with Alabama and what they have not shown is a counterpunch. I think their scheme and how they win football games works against about 95% of the country. The explosive play rate versus running the ball, it's a good 1-2 punch, but I fear that they don't have an alternative way of beating teams. So what you see in front of you is a very simple look for Georgia. You're going to see the man coverage right here, man coverage. Everyone's getting a man. 2 high safeties are a very common thing that you're going to see in a Kirby Smart defense. And if they want to rush 4, this is what it's going to look like. And then I put a very simple look for an Alabama team. Sometimes you're going to see the tight end come up behind the offensive line, but I chose a spread look because their vertical passing game is their bread and butter at Alabama. Because Jalen Milroe, his arm is incredible. And if they want to be able to run the ball and keep the eyes of the linebackers to crouch up here, it forces these guys to crouch up, and then potentially you get some explosives down the field. The problem I have with that game plan, if they aren't able to run the ball effectively, obviously a lot of the other plays get shut down. But I do think Alabama can be able to run the ball against this defense. Just because when we went into this season, one of the big concerns, and I say concerns very light for Georgia, was if you were to pick a weakness, especially on this defense, was they don't feel as confident as they did in years past with the defensive line. There was a lot of potential, but it's not the same level of confidence when you had guys like Jordan Davis. And so you add injuries into that, and it's not as confident, even in a spot that you weren't super confident in. It's still Georgia. They're still super talented, and maybe someone breaks out during this game, but it's something to point out that Alabama, if the offensive line is bouncing back and you have Caden Proctor in the lineup, they might be able to run the ball. And I think for Kirby Smart, he understands that. But I think the aspect of the Alabama offense and what they really want to shut down is this area of the field, the deep vertical plays. Why is that? Outside of the obvious, if you do not want to score touchdowns, right? Is if you close off this area, what does it leave you in very simple terms? The short intermediate passing lanes, which against man coverage, unless you're getting a lot of RPOs, can be a little difficult. I think they are going to get, Ryan Williams in motion. They're going to try to get the short passing plays going. But a lot of the talk at the NFL level is two high safeties kind of blanketing the deep area and not allowing a lot of explosives. Also knowing that Georgia just has the guys that can handle it. They have the safety duo that can cause problems and basically shut this entire area down. And the big gaping hole of this Alabama offense, and pause right there, is they cannot pass right here. They just refuse to do it. They've been able to not do it for most of the year. But when I say a counterpunch is, what does this Alabama offense looks like when they aren't able to do this? Are they going to be a ground and pound team that can make a couple plays in the short passing game? If it's a 3rd and 4, get Ryan Williams open, get one of the wide receivers open, be able to get the 3rd and 4 consistently. Because when they get into the 3rd and 7 and they have to throw right here, can they do it consistently? Because I think what Kirby Smart's going to look to do is truly blanket this deep field. And I think that a guy like Ryan Williams is going to have some problems with that, especially knowing that I think that even though there's a lot of fresh guys for Georgia in the secondary, especially playing man-to-man, I think that the safeties are going to make their lives a lot easier, especially knowing in a perfect world for Georgia, if this offensive line isn't even 25% right, and they're able to get a little pressure on Jalen Milroe. And what concerns me about Milroe the most isn't the fact that I don't think he has the arm to make any throw on this field. It's not his mobility to break this defense, because Kirby Smart comes from the Alabama lineage of, if there's one thing that can drive a defensive coach up a wall, is a mobile quarterback, because they break everything. You can have this guy come up here, this guy come up here, and he's just blanketed. There's just nothing downfield, and pardon me. And you're just trying to absolutely try to make a play. Jalen Milroe can't process anything. If this was a statue in the pocket, this is a sack, and everything starts back here. But if you have a guy that's able to move around, he catches an opening, and it just ruins basically everything that you are trying to create on the defense side of the ball. And what I think Kirby Smart's going to do, outside of, what I've restated a couple times, is not only get the deep shots non-existent and not be a factor in this game, I think they're going to let Jalen Milroe make those mistakes. And I think on the flip side, for a team like Georgia, they are going to play a sound game. I think both of these teams have had some problems with penalties, and I think though it is away, I get it. Bryant-Denny is a scary place to play. I think Georgia is going to play a lot more sound of a football game. I think Georgia's not going to turn the ball over because, to be fair, I think this Georgia offense, though people are like, oh, they don't have any weapons, they haven't been able to run the ball consistently. Things that I think are relatively true. They have not been able to run the ball pretty consistently, and that's been a problem. I fear that this Alabama secondary, which was a concern going into the season, has not truly been tested. And as much as people want to, shit on Carson Beck for being just an okay quarterback, not very flashy, he's a guy that can dice up a weakness on a defense because he's a pure pocket passer. And I think he is going to make enough plays to where Georgia continuously has long, methodical drives. I don't know if Alabama can make those 10, 11 drives when you take away this part of the field. If they're able to run the ball consistently, 10, 11 play drives are feasible. You can have enough screens. You can have enough bubble plays. You can have enough with these playmakers on the outside and these running backs where you can have those drives. And the catalyst is running the ball. But I don't know if you ask Jalen Milroe to come around here and throw the ball in this area consistently, I don't know if they win that football game. Apologies if that was a little all over the place. Once I get the whiteboard up, my mind kind of goes elsewhere and I'm trying to communicate it. But thank you for watching this video. I know it's been a couple days. We are really riding some momentum. We're at 800 subscribers, and it would be amazing if I could get to 1,000 subs by the end of the year. If you like this style of video, if you like me pulling up the whiteboard and explaining my thought process in very simple terms, I don't mean to overwhelm people with a bunch of technicalities, the man rules, the zone rules of a Kirby Smart defense, just what I think is going to happen. And, there's a good chance that, Alabama is able to run all over Georgia and be able to win this football game. That's why football is beautiful. So thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you are new to Rush the Field, all I'll ever ask of you is give me a chance to talk football with you once again. Whether it's a like, a comment, a subscribe, anything would mean the world to me. And once again, thank you so much. I'll see you guys next time.